House Speaker Paul Ryan is proposing a tax cut for the rich at the expense of middle-class and poor families. Pete Maravich for the New York Times. This article is part of the Opinion Today newsletter. You can sign up here to receive more briefings and a guide to the section daily in your inbox. At first, people talked about the Republicans' plan for tax reform. Once most of the plan's reform elements disappeared, a more appropriate name seemed to be tax cut. But now that the bill's details are coming out, it's time to update the name again. Here's my suggestion: Paul Ryan's 2017 tax increase on middle-class families. Amazingly, the bill released by House Republican leaders last week would increase taxes on net for families that have at least one child and make less than $100,000. That conclusion comes from a rigorous independent analysis of the bill, released yesterday afternoon by the Tax Policy Center. It was one of two damaging evaluations of the bill that came out yesterday. The other came from the Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan arm of Congress. The Budget Office projected that the plan would increase the deficit by $1.7 trillion over the next decade, even more than Republican leaders had claimed. Ultimately, Congress will need to find a way to pay those costs, and the most likely strategy will involve tax increases or benefit cuts for the middle class and poor. Put it all together, and this bill is a middle-class tax increase. In effect, Ryan and other House leaders are proposing an enormous tax cut for the wealthy and then trying to hold down the bill's cost by raising taxes on middle-class and poor families. On average, households making at least $5 million would receive an annual tax cut of almost $300,000 once the bill was fully phased in. The situation for the middle class is quite different. A big reason is that personal exemptions, the $4,000 in income per person that families can write off, would disappear. The bill would increase standard deductions that all taxpayers can take, but the increase isn't large enough for many families to make up for the disappearance of per-person exemptions, as Michael Linden of the Roosevelt Institute explained to me. A Times editorial breaks down other parts of the bill that hurt the middle class. The attached chart breaks down the estimated changes for families with children by income level. Average change in federal taxes for families with at least one child by income group. 1 left out the top income groups from the chart, because their tax cuts are so large that every other bar in the chart becomes difficult to read. The cynicism of this proposal is jarring, even for anyone who is already cynical about Washington. After decades in which the middle class and poor have been struggling, congressional leaders want to raise taxes on many of them, all while claiming that the bill would do the opposite. A few days ago, Mitch McConnell, the Senate leader, went so far as to say, at the end of the day, nobody in the middle class is going to get a tax increase. The good news is that many people seem to have caught on. Polling shows the bill to be highly unpopular, with many Americans correctly saying that it would help the wealthy rather than the middle class. I expect Republicans to scramble in coming days to make the bill less bad for the middle class. Senate Republicans are reportedly meeting to talk about taxes this morning and may release their own bill shortly thereafter. But tweaks aren't enough. Anything less than an entirely new tax plan from the Senate isn't worth passing. I mean, does the Paul Ryan middle-class tax increase sound as if it's a good idea? Election postmortems. If you're still giddy about the Democrats' election wins this week, be sure to read Nate Constine's analysis. The results Tuesday are fully consistent with a so-called wave election, like the ones that brought Democrats to power in the House in 2006 and back out in 2010, Cohn writes. The catch, though, is that the overwhelming Democratic strength in well-educated areas did not cross the political divides of the 2016 election and reach into white working-class areas. Without more white support, the Democrats may not be able to win the House next year, he concludes. Also, Stuart Thompson and I used charts to explain how public opinion has changed in the years since Donald Trump's election victory, and Gail Collins and Michelle Goldberg discussed yesterday's election results in a Facebook video.